like to thank the Cuba Majig Series 2 Kickstarter for sponsoring this video. Alright guys, hey, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about a couple of the AFR cards in Limited that have overperformed or underperformed our initial expectation in our set review at the start of the set. Yanks is on the call with me as always, and we'll kind of talk about a couple of cards. I think we've picked out about 17-ish that have either over or underperformed. And I'm sure Yanks and I can also argue a little bit about who was right and who was wrong about some things.
All I know is drawing 7 cards is still amazing.
Never going to talk to you ever again. All right, so let's go ahead and kick it off, guys. We're going to just go in the same order. So if you guys want to go back and see the initial review on these particular cards, you guys can do so. So our first card is the Dawnbringer Cleric. These are all mostly commons and uncommons as well, guys. The Dawnbringer Cleric is a 2-mana white and a plains for a 1/3 that when it enters the battlefield, you can gain 2 life, destroy an enchantment, or remove a card from a graveyard. So this has definitely overperformed for me. What did we initially give it?
So we initially had it as a 2.5. I think it's overperformed for you a little more than me. I think it's been good. The key is how often does that destroy target enchantment come up, which, you know, I've seen it come up, and I'm guessing you've seen it come up more than I have.
So every single time I've played this card, it has been valuable. Every single time I have played something, I'm just like, please just don't have Dawnbringer Cleric. And then they always freaking have it, and it's so good. It has definitely overperformed for me. I mean, we gave it a 2.5, and I think that's because I fought for it originally because of like class cards and stuff, but it's been super valuable for like Charm to Sleep as well. And yeah, I'm pretty high on this card now.
Yeah, I think the fact that it works well in the life gain deck, and not only do you have those multiple pieces of enchantment removal between blue and white, unlike sagas, which a lot of people, kind of classes look like sagas, you don't really feel like you're losing value if you destroy a class.
Yeah.
Like you always did with the saga, because the class is going to have a continuing effect if you don't get rid of it.
Yeah, so the Charm Sleep, the Minimus Containment, and the reason I fought for it so hard before was the class cards, which I thought would not come up as often. But the Sleeps and the Containments are pretty rampant throughout the set. Another thing I liked is I underestimated the life gain synergy. So the 2 life gain is relevant in some decks, but also I really underestimated how quick the Gruul red-green deck was going to be. And gaining 2 life and having a 1/3 that can block an early Hobgoblin is pretty good.
Yeah, we'll see with some other cards we talk about. There's a lot of X1s in this format, so just being able to get a little value in trade is nice.
Yeah, it also like slows down a ghoul, right? So like if you gain 2 life and then they attack with the ghoul, they have to sack a creature, which is probably going to be better than this, and you already got an ATB out of it.
Yeah, unless of course they're taking and sacrificing your cleric.
Well, if they take and sack this, that's kind of minimal. I'm pretty happy with that.
You're pretty happy with that.
So I personally would like to bump this up to a 3. I'm much happier with it. Whenever I play white, I'm just like, ooh, where's my 1 of Cleric here? And the amount of times I've thought to myself, please don't have Cleric, which this is not the kind of card you should hope they don't have, but it has been.
Yeah, I think this moves from a card that you're, happy to have to a card you're actively looking for.
Agreed. All right, moving on to card number 2, guys. Priest of Ancient Lore. It is a 3-mana 2/1 for 2 colorless and a plains. 2 colorless white, whatever you guys want to say. Priest of Ancient Lore enters the battlefield. You gain 1 life and draw 1 card. So what do you think? What did we initially rate it?
This is another one we had at 2.5 to begin with. And I definitely think this card is overperformed. I mean, we obviously knew it was going to be good, right? It replaces itself. But again, I think the life gain synergies have been better than we thought. And just having the body as a speed bump against those Gruul decks, or even to get in the way of the Ghoul in the sacrifice decks has become more important than I was anticipating.
It definitely trades better than I was expecting. I think the life gain I was pretty on board with, as well as the life gain card. Any card that redraws itself, I'm usually really high on. I just did not expect it to trade so well.
Yeah, you're normally happy enough with this because it replaces itself, but if it's actually trading, then it's doing more than that, right? It's a built-in 2-for-1.
Yeah, the Null, the Hobgoblin. What else is kind of annoying in this set with X1 or X2? The white 3/1 champion is pretty popular, actually.
Yep. And also, let's not forget this. It's a body that wears equipment, and equipment have been pretty good in this set.
Yeah, definitely. So bump it up to a 3.
Yep.
A bit more synergistic than we expected, and also a bit better body than we expected. All right, guys. Thassa's Hideous Laughter. This is, I think, one of the only rares that we picked that underperformed. Or overperformed.
Yeah, we had this card as a 1, or basically effectively as a meme.
Yes.
Which I think this is going to be one we disagree on a little bit, because I still think it's kind of a meme.
So yeah, you still think it's a meme. I am convinced it is no longer a meme. I've played this card a couple of times, and you know, you have to cut probably a playable for it, and you're like, well, poo, I kind of want to play this because it's I've drafted it because I want to play it because it's fun. I want to mill somebody out with it. But then in those games, I'm just like hoping to draw it because I know I will kill them. There's been a ton of games where I cast this and then cast the you happen to know the name off the top of your head, the sorcerer?
The Aberrant Mind Sorcerer.
Aberrant Mind Sorcerer. It's a 3/4 that lets you get a spell out of your graveyard, and you roll a dice. If it is a 10 or higher, it goes into your hand. If it's a 1 through 9, it goes on the top of your deck. So if you cast that afterwards, you just win. Like, Yank said that someone cast it twice that way, and he did not win off of it, but I have done it several times, and I've won every time. So I don't know.
So the reason I still don't like this card, right, is the first time you cast this card, it doesn't do anything. Right, you just randomly take some cards off their deck. It might hit their bomb. Maybe it gets rid of their bomb. Maybe it draws them right to their bomb. You know, you have no idea. You have to cast it the second time for it to really be useful. Or I guess I could see this being useful in a super controlling deck, where you're just trying to draw out the game, and maybe you're going to deck them. You know, the 8 or 9 cards you hit the first time matters.
Yes, so I have seen that happen a fair amount. Is that like, because when you get like, even if you get Simic decks, they tend to be very grindy when you have Titch Willows and you're drawing a bunch. And I've had those games go super late to the last 5 to 10 cards easily. So if this is just like a one of in your deck too, that's going to pick you up a couple extra games.
Yeah, I do think if you have a couple reliable ways to get this back, then it's fine to play. But without those, like, it's on its own, without any way to get this card back, I'm never putting it in my deck.
Yes, I agree with that statement. I did indeed play it with 2 Mind Sorcerers and 1 Mind Sorcerer, and I was unhappy with that. So I agreed that it needs some help, and you definitely want to stall your deck with it, but it'll actually win you some games, more so than I thought. I assumed with no other mill support in the format that this would not be enough, but it's strong enough on its own that if you can recur it, it'll do the job.
Yeah, the card this kind of reminds me of, even though it looks completely different, is Approach of the Second Sun, which we just saw in Mystical Archive. The first time you cast that card, doesn't do anything. But the second time, it just wins the game. Now, this is cheaper, so it's easier to cast the second time.
But it's a 2-card combo. Approach of the Second Sun gets itself back.
And this doesn't necessarily win. The only time I've played against this card, the guy cast against me twice, and I still won the game with 6 cards left in my deck.
That guy's not very good at Magic. Just true facts. True science facts. That guy is bad.
Yes, I was not playing like 60 cards. I was playing 40.
Sounds like you know what you're doing.
Although, you know, best of 3 sideboard tech against this card. Just side your whole sideboard in.
Right? Just put some extra stuff. All right. So I'm still not like, this is a bomb, play it in every blue deck, but I'm saying you can play this. You can build around it. I'm gonna give it like a 3.
I could argue I could buy this being a split card, but
definitely
like a 1-3 or something.
It's definitely a split card. Yeah. So you don't want to play it in all of your decks, but I will give it up to a 3, because if you can get some support off of it, it'll sneak you a couple wins.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Actually, we have a little clip to show you guys. Oh my god! If it goes, we have enough mana to do it. If we roll a 10 or higher, we have enough mana. Come on, 10 or higher, 10 or higher. Come on, I need a cookie. Let me have my fucking cookie. Come on. Cookie. Yes. Cookie. Come on. Cookie, cookie, cookie. Yes. Come on. Take it. Take it, take it, take it. Yes. I get a cookie. Yes. All right, guys, let's go ahead and move on to Asmodeus the Archfiend, 6 mana, 6/6. That whenever you draw a card, exile it instead, and then you can pay 1 to return exile cards, and you lose 1 life for each exiled card. And you can pay 3 black, 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 and draw 7. Go ahead, Yanks. Go ahead.
Well, we gave this a 2.5, which is just underrating the fact that it's clearly the best card in the set. It says draw 7 cards on it. What's there not to like about this card? And you can draw 7 cards with their Asmodeus, as we'll see in a clip shortly after this. You know, Black-Red Sacrifice deck is great in this deck, so just draft your, Price of Loyalty, steal the Asmodeus, draw 7 cards, and you've got like an 8 for 1. It's great.
Let's go ahead and take a look at that clip. Oh my gosh. Can we steal it, draw, and sack in response? Full control. Draw 7. Auto pay. In response. Sack it. Oh my god. Oh my. Hey YouTube, I'm gonna probably put this up there. Hope you're enjoying the video. Before we continue on with our mid-set update, I'd like to take a minute to thank the sponsor for this video, the Cubamajigs Series 2 Kickstarter. This is a Kickstarter we've been working with for the past few weeks. This is actually the last sponsored video, guys. The Kickstarter, by the time you're seeing this, is only going to have about 50 hours left for you guys to back. So before we continue on, I want to take just a minute to show you guys the product so that way you guys don't miss your chance to participate in the Kickstarter if it's something you're interested in. Cubamajigs are reusable booster boxes. These small boxes are uniquely designed for storing your cubes, so they're always ready to draft. But in all honesty, there's so much more than that. I like to use them to keep my cards organized and protected. I like to use them to separate my sideboard and tokens from the rest of my deck. I also use them to keep the more expensive cards separated so that they don't get damaged or mixed up with the rest of my cards. Cubamajigs can hold up to 15 double sleeve cards as well as 30 unsleeved cards. They're compatible with all standard TCG games, and they fit into most deck boxes. The Cubamajigs come pre-built in their own matching storage boxes. These boxes can fit 400 cards on their own if you want to use them as storage separately. There are over 30 gorgeous pieces of art designed specifically for this project and created by many of your favorite Magic artists. Through this Kickstarter, you guys will have access to all of these really cool storage units. Make sure you guys click the link in the description, go check it out. But for now, let's go ahead and get back to the set review. So that was really fun to do. I mean, I know I gave you a hard time about this, this card, and you, I hope, lushed it up a little bit for the content purposes. But no, I mean, it is still a very good card. And being able to reliably sacrifice it's pretty cool. And also, if they're not removing your 6/6, you're probably going to win anyway.
Yeah, I don't actually think this card's better than the 2.5 we gave it, because you need those. Just like the last card, you need those sacrifice outlets.
Yeah, and also
for this card to be good.
If you draw 3 cards with it and then you get your card back and it gets removed, you're really only losing 3 life and you get those things back anyway. So I like one of the things I don't think I really noted before is that you can get the cards back at instant speed. So as long as you're always holding open that 1 mana, you're losing those cards temporarily, but you're beating them down with a 6/6. As long as you're not at 3 health, right? That's okay. And then they have to eventually remove a 6/6 or you win. If, you know, and then when they do, in response, you draw your 3 or 4 cards that you were deprived of, and then you're kind of like back where you started. A little bit less board developed, but it still doesn't feel quite as bad as I expected.
Yeah, I mean, 6 mana, 6/6s we always play, and, you know, this has a lot of upside. It definitely has some downside, too. So, you know, beware of that. It's not something, you know, late game if you're behind or down on life. Ooh, a 6/6. That's great for my board, except I don't get to draw cards anymore. So, you know, it's a mixed bag, but it's definitely a decent card.
Well, and all of this is moot if you just steal theirs and then draw 9 cards, right?
Exactly. Now, I will say what I did not consider when we talked about this card grade is the fact that they can do that to me. I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy about them stealing my Asmodeus.
So what we're saying is this is like a 2 on our side of the board, or it's like a 4 on their side for us when we take it.
For us. Exactly.
Take it. Certainly true. You have to have a lot of mana open, though, to like steal it, do the thing, sacrifice it, like especially if you don't have the ghoul, right? If you have to pay 2 mana to sacrifice it with either the spell or the Skullport Merchant. So,
yeah, you really need the ghoul.
Yeah. That is a lot of mana still, but I mean, I still think we are rating this around a 2.53-ish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Moving right along, guys. So this is a card, it's one of a few cards that all got listed here because we think they're a little underrated on our initial score rating because the archetype in general that they belong to has performed a lot better than we expected. We thought they would be good, better than they have, you know, been in the past, and that is the red-black sacrifice deck. It is the #1 deck with the most highest win rate, right? It's like 60-something% of 6+ win decks are red-black sacrifice. So this is just higher rated because it's good in all of those. It's also very good in response to sleep, and if you do it in response to containment, that's another thing, or you can sack the containment token too. Yanks, what did we give this originally?
Originally, we had Deadly Dispute as a 2.5.
I still don't think it's like too, like we're not like first picking this by any means, but like the archetype's very good, so it's probably a 3.
Yeah, the archetype's very good. The fact that there's in a lot of sets you don't have the quantity of sack outlets, like you don't have another really good common one like we do in this set in the Ghoul. But that also is probably the only reason this deck is actually good, is because you have that quantity. So,
agreed.
That both increases and decreases the value of this card at the same time. But yeah, I think it's everything in that deck just kind of gets bumped up a little bit from where we had it beforehand. And actually, also, I think we talked about this in the pre-set review, but there's just so many treasure tokens floating around that sometimes you could just turn a treasure into 2 cards.
I was actually waiting for you to finish what you were saying, so I could say that I don't think when I initially evaluated this, so many times you're like, when you have this sort of an ability in your hand, you're just like, well, I don't really have a creature that's like either worth sacking, or you were waiting for them to remove something and it doesn't. So it's just kind of a dead card for a really long time. I've had a ton of like sack decks where I'm feeling behind or I don't have anything really going on. Sometimes don't even have a creature on board. I'm able to just sacrifice a treasure token and get back in. And I think that the treasure token generation has overperformed for me as well, which you guys will see in a couple of the cards coming up in our overperforming set, that like you have access to treasure tokens pretty easily, and I think this is a really nice outlet when you have nothing else to do.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, moving right along. Death Priest of Myrkul? Whatever.
Yeah.
You want to tell me how to say that one?
I'm just guessing. Probably Myrkul, not sure.
Myrkul. Okay, I like it. So it's a 2 colorless black, and it is a 2/2, so a pretty hefty price for a 2/2. But skeletons, vampires, zombies get +1/+1. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 black skeleton, which gets +1/+1 so long as this lord is on the board. What did we initially give this?
Yeah, So we were really high on this card. We had this as a 4 in the set review, and I just don't think it's quite lived up to expectations.
Agreed. This is one of our few underperforming cards. I think I might have argued to bump this. I was pretty high on it. I don't remember if you were.
I definitely was. I don't remember if I was as high as we ended up, but I was definitely high on this card. I mean, it's, a lord that fuels itself. It's any creature yours, theirs, not non-token. The tokens fuel itself. It just looks like a really good sustaining engine, but it's just so slow.
It is slow. I think that the format in general has, not that this card has been not what we thought it was, like we didn't misread it or anything. I think in a lot of formats this would be a home run, but the rest of the format has not been very conducive to like making this go off. There's not a lot of stalled board states that aren't in like a Selesnya like mirror match.
Yeah, the few times I've played this card, I've just always found myself it either being too little, too late, or just not having the spare mana for it.
Yes.
It just wasn't impactful enough to do that at the times I wanted to, because I had to use all my mana to kill the thing in the first place to trigger it.
Definitely. So, I mean, I'm much lower on this card. I still think it's great. I'm still playing it in any black deck, but I'm not like as excited to be like pick one-ing this. Sorry, I'm a little loopy apparently. So what are you thinking? 3.5?
I think I'd drop it a full point down to 3. Again, you're still playing this in probably any black deck, like you said, but I'm not, ecstatic to see, yep, I'm going to build around this, grabbing every skeleton I can find, and, just making it the centerpiece of my deck anymore. Agreed.
I think it still has the capability, because I've won a lot of games because of this card, especially with Talisman, which is one of our next cards. That is a really cool mechanic to have this priest with a talisman. So it can be an all-star, but it is not guaranteed to be an all-star in your deck, which is what I was kind of expecting.
It also looks like it should play so well with the sacrifice deck, right? You're stealing things, sacking them, making a skeleton, but the deck just doesn't need this. It's just good enough without this card.
So I didn't have the sacrifice deck, but what I did have was this and a Cutthroat, which you sack a creature, draw a card. So for 3 mana, I was able to just draw a card every turn, basically.
Yeah.
And that worked out pretty well. I was very happy with that interaction. All right, guys, moving right along to the Reaper's Talisman. 1 mana for a artifact with a equip cost 2. Whenever equipped creature attacks, it gains Death Touch till end of turn. If it attacked alone, drain 2 life. I am over the moon with this card. What did we initially give it?
We had this as a 3.5.
So I'm really surprised we gave it a 3.5 because I knew I liked it, but that still seems pretty high. It has overperformed my expectation by far.
Yeah, this card's been great. It's also got to top the rankings for most misread card by Twitch chat for, hey, you've got the win. No, it's attacks alone.
Oh my gosh, so many times Twitch chat's like, you miss, oh yeah. Every single time I play this card, chat tells me I missed lethal because I did an alpha. Because they're like, yeah, they would take 2 from that and then the 2 from the thing. And I'm like, no. Agreed. This is probably the most misread card. I would probably go with that's correct.
But no, I'm a little surprised, like you said, that we put it as high as we did, because, on its face, it's an equipment that doesn't do that much. It doesn't impact the board when it comes down. It makes some things trade better, but, there's no power boost. It doesn't help anything survive an attack. So you have to keep re-equipping it, but the drain is just so good. I'm
still glad we gave it that, and I want to bump it up to a 4. This has won me more games than most of the rares in the set. Like, this turns all of your little puny dudes into home runs. They have to deal with them. They trade up. This with a swarming goblins, game over. Like, there is not a damn thing they can do to stop that, and you just chip away at them. And putting this on a 1/3, putting this on a hoarding robber, oh, it's just a dream come true. I want to marry this card. Have its talisman babies.
I'm not sure what that would look like given the skull there, but
they'd probably be 1/1 zombie or 1/1 skeletons.
Yeah.
That get +1/+1. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm gonna give this a 4. Are you still like in the 3.5 boat, or what are you thinking?
I think I'm still in 3.5 boat just because I haven't played with this card enough. But the little bit I've seen it, either both in your decks and playing against it, It is very good and is a scary card.
Awesome. Okay, moving on to the Ghoul, guys. This is the Ghoul that is one of the centerpieces for that red-black sacrifice deck. It is a 2 mana, colorless, and a black 2/1 that you may sacrifice a creature, and it gets +2/+2, activate only once per turn, which is important. I tried to kill something once by sacking 3 things. It didn't work.
Yeah, Sepulchre Ghoul we had as a 2 originally, which is we were definitely low on, but not because of the card itself, but because of how good the deck is. I mean, this Endor, Price of Loyalty, and Red are the most important cards in that deck, in the best deck in the format.
Correct. Yeah. The Price of Loyalty Steel thing, which like I guess we will get to in the next color, like that synergy doesn't usually come together very well because there aren't enough premium sack outlets. So I was really just not looking for them during the initial set review.
Yeah, there usually aren't enough, and there's very rarely good ones that are free like this.
Or good ones that are drawing you cards, right?
Yeah.
Like a ton of cards.
You know, for players who can remember back to like Magic Origins or, you know, back to, I think it was Onslaught when it was first printed, you know, I would never have expected a worse Nantuko Husk to be arguably the best common in the set, but this very well might be.
Definitely. And I always, whenever, like, there was like a Witch's Cauldron, not the most recent one from, not Cat in the Oven, but there was another cauldron that had like a newt and some witch or whatever. And there was a steel card in that. And I used to love forcing that and just like, it was cheesy and not a thing. And it was bad. Don't do that. But it was the funnest thing for me to do in draft. So I just like to do it. But this is actually good. And this is like one of the very few times that has been the case.
Yeah, that was the Bubbling Cauldron, Festering Newt, Bogbrew Witch.
How do you always know card names? You're like a I don't know what I had for lunch yesterday.
Like you gotta be halfway there with Cauldron, so that helped me remember it.
It's like playing charades with Magic cards. If you try to have a Magic conversation, it's like a mixture of like charades and Pictionary. It's like it looks like this thing, it does the stuff, it's got some wings. All right, guys, moving on. So Warlock Class, this is a card that actually Yanks wanted me to put on the list, but I am a little less high on. It is a class card for 1 black. Immediate level 1 is at the beginning of your upkeep. If a creature, if a creature died this turn, each opponent loses a life. Level it up for 2 mana. Look at the top 3 cards, put one of them into your hand and the rest in the graveyard. 7 mana, a little steep, but still a good ability. And the nice thing is you can like wait until you stabilize here. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life they had lost this turn. So you just like double up your turns.
Yeah, we gave this card a 2.5 originally. I'm not saying this card's a bomb, but I think it's a little better than that. The first ability by itself isn't that huge, but what becomes relevant is obviously level 2 is just 2 mana replaces itself with some selection. So you're fine with that. And then late in the game, when you can play this, you can level this up to 3. It just lets you make these attacks that look bad on its face, but just drain your opponent out so fast. Because all you have to do is if you can get through for 2, even with a bunch of trades or you losing things, that becomes 3, which becomes 6. Like that turn. It just completely changes the dynamics of a race.
That's definitely, well, in a race definitely, but it's also a dead card, which like a creature can definitely change the dynamic of a race too. For me, it's just a bit too expensive, and when you have no creatures or cards, it's kind of a dead thing. And yeah, I'm personally still not very high on it. So you would bump it up to what, from a 2/5?
To a 3. I don't think huge, but I don't know. It is just again, small sample size the times I've played it, but it has been much better than what I was expecting it to be.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I've played it like 3 or 4 times, and it's always been worse than I kind of expected. So sure. We'll high five over the fence on this one. We agree on most things, so it's fine. Ooh.
Maybe it's just because I'm a warlock in WoW.
Oh. Are you? I thought you were just a shot caller. I didn't actually know you like casted spells.
Well, I don't do any damage, but I cast spells.
Okay, fair.
I just don't do anything.
All right, Hoarding Goblin, guys, 4 mana, 3 colorless, and a red. It is whenever it attacks, it's a 3/3, sorry. Whenever it attacks, roll a dice 1 through 9, create a treasure token. 10 through 19, create 2 treasure tokens, and a nat crit 20, create 3 treasure tokens. This has overperformed massively. This is one of my, like, top overperformers, I think. I guess I was really low on this card.
We just had this as a 2. I mean, and it just looks like a hill giant. 4 mana, 3/3, something that was good 22 years ago in Magic, but just just overpriced now. But the mana ramp has been super relevant.
Yeah, the mana ramp, the fixing, and the treasures themselves, sacrificing them for like stuff later has been pretty relevant. There's a lot of turns where we're wanting to like return things from the graveyard, recast them, activating your Warlock class, whatever. Yeah, I'm really happy. If this just trades, I feel good about it. And then when it doesn't trade and I get more than one attack, I'm winning the game. It feels like this has definitely been a lot better than I thought it would be. It also trades with all of the 4/3s, which there is like a whole cycle of 4/3s. Very few 4/4s.
Yeah, one thing that's nice too is that usually like 4 mana 3/3, you're worried about it trading down, most likely for a 3-drop. But since you're getting at least that one treasure back, you're still breaking even on mana there.
Mm-hmm.
And potentially more, more than half the time, more than that, because of the 10 to 20 being more than one.
Definitely, yeah. And also it's got 3 power, so it still works with things like Thieves' Tools, which is pretty spicy. And you can use your treasures to sacrifice things, to pump things, to give it +2/+0 and first strikey type stuff. There's a lot of payoffs for them, so pretty happy.
It works with all the pack tactics cards. If it helps 3 power for that with something like Hobgoblin Captain.
So we said a 2. I'm definitely a 3. This is like a whole point.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. And in some decks, I'm even happier with it. All right, Hobgoblin Captain, guys. It is a 2 mana, colorless red, or a 3/1. Pack tactics, whenever you attack with 6 power or greater, it gains first strike. This is a lot better than I thought.
Yeah, we had this as a 2.5. And your problem with 2 mana 3/1s, right, is they're good aggressive cards, but they just tend to trade for tokens or for, cards that you don't particularly care about if you're trying to attack with them. But the first strike on this makes it really hard to block.
It's more relevant than I thought. The format's faster than I thought. I've had so many games where they were just like Hobgoblin, Dragonfire, other 2-drop, and I'm dead. Like, the game is over with a bunch of commons.
Yeah, this is probably one of the number 1, outside of the sacrifice stack, probably the number 1, villains in terms of games ending super quick. Just a couple of these in a row.
Definitely.
Backed up by, like you said, a removal spell or a combat trick.
And if you put Talisman on it, well, that won't work because it won't be attacking alone, but never mind. All right, guys. So we said a 2/5. It's definitely a 3. Yeah. It's definitely a 3 in any deck, and then it goes up if you have the like Gruul Pack Tactics deck, which gets nutty.
Yeah.
All right, Magic Missiles, guys. Colorless red. The spell cannot be countered, which I have tried to counter it several times, but I always get that nice little warning that says, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Oh wait." I do forget that part of this text. Missiles deals 3 damage divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets. What was our initial rating?
We had it as a 3 originally.
So I don't think I realized how powerful X1s were going to be and how many like 1/1 goblins were going to be relevant.
Yeah, I think that this is one of the examples why our last card might not be always the best, because it's easy 2-for-1 against something like Magic Missile. But that's probably more of an argument for how good this card is rather than the latter.
Yeah, there's been especially against more aggressive decks, there's so many times I'm just like, kill your Hobgoblin, kill your Null, like before they get a chance to go off, and it's amazing. It also goes face, which a lot of these types of spells don't, so it's a nice little backup thing too if you need it. It also ensures that none of your damage goes to waste if you decide to use it as a 1-for-1. And it's a, pretty decent one for one. There's not a ton of big creatures. Some of the biggest creatures in the format are actually 4/3s. So it does some good work. There's also like Manticore is another X1 to watch out for that that this will, clean house with or against.
Yeah, I think people get tripped up on cards like this. Like I remember back to like Arc Lightning and Urza Saga, which was a 3 damage split, however you wanted. But thinking, well, I'm never going to get 3 cards with this. Well, you're probably not very often, but okay, you're still pretty thrilled with getting 2 cards.
I feel like you're getting 1.5 cards with this.
Yeah, like, just because it's not always going to be the best possible case scenario, doesn't mean the next best scenario is still not really good.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. I think it's above average for sure. So we gave it a 3. I'm happy to bump it to a 3/5.
Yep, agreed.
All right, cool. Plundering Barbarian, 3 mana, 2 colorless red. Plundering Barbarian enters the battlefield. Choose 1 destroy target artifact and create a treasure token. What was our initial score?
We had this as a 2.5.
I like this card. I want it in every single red deck. I'm giving it a 3. The treasures are more useful than I was expecting, and the artifacts are also more relevant than I was expecting because the equipments are much better than they have been in some of the more previous sets. Like there's a lot of artifacts, a lot of equipments, and they're actually pretty solid. And Talisman is a very popular card that is ran a lot. You see it a ton. It's super good, as well as Thieves' Tools is another thing that you will often get to kill with this card. And I have run 2 of these in a lot of red decks and always been very happy to have them. You can also, in a pinch, just like kill their treasure token. I've had them be like stuck on 3 and have a treasure, and then you just get their treasure and you're just like, okay, what now?
Yeah, I mean, this is, for anyone that's Vintage Cube fans, you see cards like Manic Vandal that are, 2/2 destroy target artifact for 3 mana, and those cards are always great. And why? Because there's a million artifacts running around in that set, in, Cube decks. Well, that's kind of the case in this set. See all the equipment NerdGirl was just talking about. Get things like Bag of Holding that you want to blow up, before they can activate it. Or even, trade these off for a Spiked Pit Trap before they can use it to kill something better.
Definitely.
Trading the ability off. There's just a lot of good targets for this, and in a pinch, it becomes mana ramp and fixing.
Absolutely. Or, like, yeah, killing their stuff too, their treasures. I mean, like, stopping them from ramping and fixing. And, yeah, Spike Trap was a good call. One thing I was going to suggest, too, is, like, play around Spike Trap when you have... when you're playing against red, because this is such a good common card that every red deck will be running one of, basically, if they, are smart. So sometimes I'll just play my Spike Trap out because I'm being very lazy, but if you're playing against a red opponent, I would watch out for this card. It's worth not playing.
Agreed.
All right, moving on. Price of Loyalty, guys. This one speaks for itself. We've kind of already talked about it a fair amount. Price of Loyalty is 2 colorless and a red. Gain control of target creature. It gains haste, untap it, attack. If a treasure was paid, gain +2/+0, so you hit a little harder. These, again, are not usually very good. I'll maybe sometimes run them as like a top end for a really aggressive deck that has no way to finish. And, we'll just throw one of these in just in case. But in this set, it is actually very good. It is the main centerpiece card that is required for the #1 deck in the format.
Yeah, I mean, this was probably our biggest miss of the set. We had this as a 1.5. And again, it's not because the card is bad, it's just because the deck is not normally there.
Yes, but it has premium sack outlets, and not just 1, not just 2, but 3 premium sack outlets. And the +2/+0 is really relevant because there are a lot more treasure generators than we were expecting, and those treasure generators are producing more treasures than we expected, making it more likely that, even if you don't have your sack outlet, sometimes you could just kill people by casting 2 of these and then getting them.
Yeah. I mean, this card's, not much else to say. It's the centerpiece of the best deck in the format.
All right, moving on, guys. Valor Singer. It is a 3 mana, 2 colorless red. At the beginning of your combat, on your turn, target creature gets +1/+0. So
yeah, we had this.
Oh, go ahead.
We had this as a 2.5 to begin with, which I don't think is super far off, but I do think it's been a little better than that.
I agree. This is like a pretty marginal thing that we just put in because I'm happier to run it than I was, but again, I don't think it's super far. I'm going to give this a 3. It's filler it starts to become a 3-drop I get excited about picking up in the mid pack. It makes like your fairies a threat. It makes everything a threat. It makes tokens good. So, you know, if you have a talisman, you're getting in more damage. You're making it so that they can no longer afford to take the damage from the creature, allowing you to trade up with your like tokens and stuff. Just overall, pretty happy with this card.
Agreed. I'd probably bump this up like a half point to a 3.
Yep, that's where I'm at as well. All right, Null Hunter, guys. 2 mana, 2/2, colorless green, pack tactics, attack with 6 or greater power, get +1/+1 permanently. Again, I thought this would be fine, but pack tactics has outperformed for me with Hobgoblin, and these are quite a pair.
Yeah, we thought this card would be decent. We had it as a 2.5. I think it's, again, a little bit better than that. It's good in multiples. It's good with other commons. It doesn't need a lot of support. It really doesn't need any support to be good. You're going to find ways, whether it be in Gruul to trigger pack tactics or green-white just from going wide, you can trigger it. Like it's just a solid card that becomes a bigger and bigger threat.
It also, like, what I find too, I'm running these in multiples. They go around a little bit later than I feel like they should. And it's forcing your opponents to use their premium removal on your 2-drop. Like, for a 2-drop, this is super powerful. Not in that it's going to win the game, but in that it's gonna force them to answer it. A lot of times you play your 2-drop, even if it's a solid 2-drop, they play a 2/3 or a 3/3. It's now stonewalled and can do nothing. But this has gotten so much value over time, and they always have to fear, like, when you do eventually attack with it, even if you didn't get a trigger, it's not a 2/2, it's a 3/3. It's essentially a 3/3 for 2, which is great value.
Yeah, it's not just, you make a good point with your premium removal, but it's not just that they have to use it. It also can force your opponent to play off curve. Because a lot of times you play a 2-drop and then they go, okay, I'll play my 2-drop or 3-drop and I'll deal with whatever. I have a removal spell, but I want to build my board first and play this later. But if they have like the 3 mana deal 2 damage, they have to cast it right then, or they may not get another shot to kill it.
Definitely.
It forces their hand on the timing of that removal. Which can make just completely throw off your opponent's game plan.
And I get to a point a lot where this is like a 4/4 now, right? And then you're like, okay, do I kill this thing that's troublesome, or do I kill their 5-drop, which is actually equally troublesome now, but doesn't get worse? So you're like getting to keep these more valuable cards late game, and then they're like removing this mid to late. It feels so good.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, so I'm giving it like a 3.
Yep.
Still a slight bump. It needs some cohesive deck building. Like, you gotta kind of get the deck for it, but it pays off more than I was expecting. All right, Hand of Vecna, guys. What was our score?
Hand of Vecna we had as a 2.
So at the beginning of 3 mana, 2 equip for equipment. At the beginning of combat, equip creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. You can also pay 1 to equip it for each card. So if you don't have the mana, or if you have no cards in hand, you can equip it for free.
Yeah, I think a couple things have worked out in this card's favor. I think equipment in general have been good in this set. Also, I think just the fact that the set's fairly aggressive, this just fits really well in an aggressive deck that doesn't mind giving up life to get that power bump, and basically give on turn 3 you can give your 2/2 like +3/+3 in hasted power attached to it.
I'm also finding that there's more card draw.
Yeah.
I was expecting to like dump out my hand and have this be useless a fair amount of the time, but I mean, I'm scrying a ton, I'm drawing a ton, I'm sacking, their creature and drawing a ton, and yeah, it's definitely overperformed in that way for me as well.
Yeah, the set seems to have a reasonable amount of mana sinks in it, which just also can tend to keep a few more cards in your hand because you're spending mana on things like equipping, or sometimes the better play is not to play a card out of your hand, but to do something else with the board.
That's true. Like, even the more aggressive decks are dealing with a lot of equipment, so they are equipping instead of like dumping out a lot of little dudes, and that could also like keep this more valuable. So what was our score again?
We had it as a 2.
I think it's like 35.
I think it's somewhere between 3 and 3.5. There are decks that don't want this.
Definitely.
But I think more decks do than typically do.
All right, guys, that is the last card for our over or underperforming cards from the previous set. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you leave some comments down below with your thoughts, and if you guys would like to check out the original set reviews to you know, compare your ratings and scores for the cards that we've been playing with for the last few weeks, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on them. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys. I'd like to give a special thank you to those of you who have signed up for our Patreon. I couldn't make this content without you. Also to Cool Stuff Inc. and KMC Sleeves for supporting the channel as well. Definitely check them out and use our discount codes to support the channel.